Healthcare marketers are always being asked to do more with less. It's almost like it's our standard mode of operating. But in the current difficult economic environment, and with all the policy pressures, healthcare marketers at provider organizations are under particular pressure to do more with the resources they have at hand. And in fact, the resources they have at hand is actually shrinking. So I wanted to find out how one healthcare leader is succeeding in this type of environment and managing to do more with less. Hello and welcome to Swaay.Health, where we explore the latest insights and bring you the interesting stories from the brightest minds in healthcare marketing. I'm Colin Hung, and what you're about to listen and watch is my discussion with Chris Pace, who is the Chief Digital Marketing Officer at Banner Health. Chris is managing to do amazing things with his team, but by taking a slightly different approach to that more with less mantra. I hope you enjoy this interview. Well, Chris, welcome back to the program.
Yeah, appreciate you asking me to join you.
It's always fun to have you. I'm always interested in your insights. And today we're going to talk a little bit about something that is dominating the agendas for a lot of marketers out there.
And it's not AI.
And it's not AI.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And that is the theme of doing more with less.
Yes.
Tell me more about that.
Yeah, so what we've learned over the last 4 years is that budgets wholesale have been cut 40%, some studies say. And I mean, I know firsthand that this is a reality as margins shrink and labor costs and costs to deliver care increase. And meanwhile, reimbursement isn't keeping up with it. It's hard to rationalize spend. And so the conversation keeps coming through as do more with less. And I think that the framework of that dialogue needs to change a little bit, because what it puts pressure on teams to do is, or feel, is to wear too many hats and they get burned out and they get anxious and stressed. So that's kind of the conceptually, the why that I feel like is going on right now.
Yeah, and how would someone like you or someone in a leadership position, how do you manage through that? Because that's pretty tough when you're asking people to do 1.5 jobs or take over something that maybe wasn't what they originally signed up to do.
Yeah, it's a great question. I think what we've seen is it's time to dial back and really get back to basics. And so with any change, economic or structural or industry, it's always good to step back and reevaluate what you're focused on. And I think the first thing you need to do to make sure that your teams are heard is listen. So have conversations. What are we doing that isn't adding value? What are we doing that is maybe we kind of have these start, stop, continue conversations.
Sure.
So what do we need to dial back? What maybe isn't a priority, and what do we need to double down on? Because at the end of the day, the resources, the time, and the people are the scarcest. And so how do we manage through all that while still delivering value and meeting expectations of our stakeholders?
Yeah, I like what you said there, because it's when we say do more with less, what sometimes we think of is maintaining the level we were at before.
Yes.
And what I'm hearing you say is that may not be necessary. It's time to kind of take a look at it and say, well, maybe these 5 tasks that we were doing, maybe in the current context, they're not necessary or they're not a priority. So let's take them away and not actually put them on the shoulders of the people who we're trying to do more with.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you look at things like channel mix, and we also are feeling the pinch on the advertising side of how expensive impressions and actions are in those channels. So meanwhile, over the years, a lot of organizations have made deep investments in digital front door and marketing automation. And so now's the time to start playing around with that mix and that allocation and leveraging those own channels, because at the end of the day, you have so much more control over how you execute, where you execute, and when you execute, compared to the auction style of advertising. So it's always making sure you're balancing the deck to get the most out of it.
Again, I like that insight there. Essentially, what I'm hearing is you have an opportunity now to work a little smarter. Whereas before, it would just be, let's just go straight up auction. Here's the easy way to do the bidding and some things. But now with some of the technology that you may have invested in over the years, you can get a little bit more refined. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. You feel it almost feels like when times are good, you may get a little complacent. You have a lot of money, you can, sort of spend it
right.
A little bit less strategically.
Right.
But I find the best outcomes and the best innovation, the best thought leadership is through pressure. And so everybody manages pressure and stress differently. And I think if you can dial the conversation into, hey, we have an opportunity to do something that hasn't been done in a while,
right,
and figure out new ways to do our work. And so in the doing more with less, it's maybe thinking more through less. And so that's really just the mindset change that I think a lot of people need to try out.
So we talked about obviously the ad spending. That's an opportunity to kind of scale back or maybe re-investigate or audit kind of what you're doing there. Are there any other low-hanging fruit like that you would recommend someone take a look at just to make sure that how they're doing something today meshes with the fact that you're being asked to do 2 times as much work with half the staff?
Yeah, and this is the perfect time to, you don't have to guess, you can ask. So start doing focus groups. A lot of times you can do those with a small budget and just have conversations with your community members, your customers. Also look at the lens around you. So getting that marketing intelligence on where everybody else is placing their bets and try to find those opportunities of competitive advantage. One thing that everybody's dealing with right now is access. It's hard to get appointments, it's hard to get seen, it's hard to get through the system. So maybe have conversations with your access team, schedulers, to see where are those open windows that you can drive people to, and maybe deprioritize the ones that have long wait lists, because all you're doing is adding to the problem if you're promoting those services. So you start to dial up and dial down your service line mix and strategy as well. And meanwhile, one of the most efficient ways to gain favor with customers is through brand. So I think we're going to have a little bit of a revolution of brand, because brand rises all boats, and then performance underneath it can then sort of link and leverage from the brand and try to drive to those actions where you have access availability.
Because I have to ask you this question. We're heading to the end of 2023. We're getting ready for 2024. Is there anything on the horizon that you think we're going to be talking about next year in terms of a challenge or an opportunity that, other than AI?
Yeah, other than AI.
That's going to be on the lips of everyone next year.
So prediction.
Yes.
So one thing I'm really focused on, and I think my LinkedIn content strategy will be aiming at, is rethinking calls to action. I feel like we've been a little stale in the space in terms of how to drive intent into action, and knowing that with access issues or time and place of where the customer is in their purchase journey, it's time to kind of peel back the machine and say, okay, which moment matters at every step of the way. And I think, this is a hypothesis, so we'll have to see how it plays out. But if we are able to stay relevant and engaged in this attention economy that we're participating in, you can drive those value propositions, you can create some stickiness before purchase. And then once you sort of unpack how they got there, then look through the lens of creating stickiness on the back end. So making sure that the engagement stays, that there's opportunities to inform or cross promote. And so there's a lot of cool things that you can do with automated tools, which does include AI.
Of course.
So everybody's going to be participating in that next year. But really just like walking through the lens of the customer and knowing that their journey is never linear. So just whatever you can do to track it and measure it and follow along, I think will determine where calls to action go.
I love it, Chris. I look forward to seeing some of these changes in the next year as I watch what you're doing over at Banner-Health.
Yeah.
And on that note, where can people go to find more information about the stuff that you're doing and your organization?
Yeah, so bannerhealth.com is the way you can find our information about our organization. If you want to follow me, I talk about a lot of different things, sometimes AI, so forgive me on that. But just go to Chris Pace AZ on LinkedIn. That's how you'll find me.
Awesome.
And I'm sure you'll have a link in the.
I'm sure I'll have a link in the article and
Yeah.
in the video for sure. Well, Chris, always a pleasure to have you on the program. Thanks for being with us.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Hey, I want to thank Chris for coming on camera with me. It's always great to speak with him. He is always full of great insights. I particularly liked how he really reframed that do more with less, because it's not always about doing more. What Chris was saying is that this is an opportunity for marketing leaders to really take stock of what tasks are in front of them and to really reprioritize them and perhaps eliminate something that is no longer needed. Because that is one easy way to actually do more with less. I hope you enjoyed this interview as much as I did. And if you did, please like and subscribe. Also, head on over to Swaay.Health. That's Swaay with 2 A's, .health. That's where you'll find more great content like this. I'm Colin Hung. Thanks for being here, and I'll catch you on the next video.